Welcome to Highly Sensitive, Happily Married, the podcast that teaches you to not only have an easier marriage as a sensitive woman, but to have one that feels more amazing by the day. Where you'll hear relatable stories, love advice that works, and coaching on how to have a marriage where feeling upset and disconnected is a thing of the past, and where instead a sense of loving connection and even fun and lightness is the norm. I'm Hannah Brooks, highly sensitive person, love expert, and marriage coach, and I'm so happy to be on this journey with you. Today, I have a special treat for you. It's my first interview with a client on this podcast, and I'm excited to introduce my client, Jade. Every client's journey is a little different, and, everyone comes with unique things going on for them inside of them and in their relationship. And everyone goes through the coaching process with me in their own way. And, when we address their unique things. So I think at the same time, there are many ways that most clients' experiences overlap, and there are many themes that I find that I encounter again and again in my work with clients. So, Jade's story is going to resonate with some of you more than others, and in some ways more than others. But I'm quite sure that there'll be insights and, tips that she'll be sharing that will be really helpful to you. And my hope is really that her story will inspire you and give you encouragement and hope. And again, maybe even offer you some very specific tips for ways that you can shift things in your marriage, the way that she powerfully changed things in hers. And I don't think she quite does it justice, how much things have changed for her. And, she talks about him not being all that different, but he truly is. You'll hear some of the stories, and some of the stories she tells. He wasn't doing these things when she first came to coaching with me. And so I really thought this would be a great story for you to just hear, how far someone can come, how much one can go from sort of despair and total discouragement and questioning of the relationship to really, feeling so much closeness and love. So this is for you, to inspire you. Enjoy. Hi, Jade. It's been such a joy to watch you grow. And I know you have whatever you have to say, I think is going to inspire and help other people. I think it'll be really fun for other people to hear your story. So thank you. And thank you. Yeah, my first question for you is, what were things like for you right before we started working together?
It was a struggle. It was a real emotional struggle because, like we've discussed, and I've been married before, and that breakup was really, really hard, and I didn't want to go through anything like that again, essentially. So I just knew that I was a very sensitive and emotional person, and I knew that I had some work to do if I ever wanted to be successful in my relationship. So because things were quite tumultuous at times with my partner, I thought, well, maybe I need to lead the way here and just stay on my side of the road and change myself. And I'm sure that that'll influence him to do the same, or show up and be the best person that I can be. That was my goal. Mm-hmm. So things, overall, we've nearly broken up 3 times. So what does that tell you? I mean, I definitely needed to change something, and I thought to myself, I've tried to do a lot on my own. I really need some help here.
Yeah. And if you don't mind sharing, how did you show up with him, and how did he show up that was really hard for you? Like, what were the actions you guys were taking with each other?
Sure. Well, he is the biggest jokester ever. And like I've said to you before, that was one of the things that attracted me so much to him because I love laughing, but
Mm.
sometimes I would just take things so personally.
Mm.
And it was hardly ever personal, you know? And so I would get really grumpy or angry, and, you know, he didn't
Yeah.
want to be around that. And I didn't like feeling that way, but, you know, I guess we weren't showing up in the best light for each other. I mean, he hasn't changed much. It's me that's sort of like gone, you know what, I'd rather laugh at this than be offended by this. And sometimes it's easier than others, but I've definitely started laughing more now than what I did back in the old days.
Yeah, totally. One of, what I remember, we've been working together for like, it's been about 6 months now. And
Yeah.
yeah, which is so fun. It's just so fun to have known you then and just to see how much you've grown. But what,
You.
yeah, but what I noticed like in the beginning, which is totally normal and common, is, you actually were kind of angry a lot at him.
I was.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think what happens is sometimes your brain, like, it doesn't want to remember certain things.
Yeah.
But you're right. You're definitely right. I was angry a lot, and there was a lot of blame, resentment,
Yeah.
and that wasn't fun. That wasn't a fun place to be for either of us, you know.
Yeah.
And so 6 months is a long time to learn a lot. And I think the resentment part was probably the biggest part, and I didn't want to continue like that. So
Yeah.
working with you and changing certain things definitely helped a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. So I'm going to actually circle back to that because I have another question around that, but I'm so curious, and I'm sure
Mhm.
people listening will be curious too. Like, what are things like now? And I know you have like a real relationship, right? So there's going to be hard moments still because we're all human,
Mm,
right?
mm,
But you've also, your relationship has changed a lot. And so I'm curious about, I can hear some of the hard stuff too, if you feel like sharing that, but especially
mhm.
like what's good about it now and what surprised you?
Um, it feels, it just feels lighter to me, if
Mm.
that's the best way I can describe it. And there's like I don't know, tension just seems to melt away so much quicker.
Mm.
We we laugh a lot more, which is fabulous because it was like that at the beginning. And we haven't been together that long compared to some other couples, but it's like I said to you, I'm like, let's get the hard stuff out of the way now. But
Yes.
like you said, it's not like we're not gonna have the harder times. And I think I had this concept or this idea of what a relationship should be, and it was so
Mm.
wrong.
Hmm.
I had so many, like, it should be this way, he should do this, he should do that, but not really, you know. And
Yeah.
um it's just good because I guess we honor our own self-care, you know, we accept each other's no's. um I don't take things as personally. So there's just a lot more flexibility, freedom, and lightness in our relationship. And I still feel like it could get better. It can always get better, and it can always grow deeper, which I feel so excited about because I only ever want to feel close to him.
Yeah.
And and so it just gets better all the time. And that's the faith I have of where it's going to go, is it's just going to keep getting better.
Yeah, totally. And and also, one thing that stands out, well, there's a bunch of things that stand out when I think about you and him and your relationship now. But one thing is just like what we were just talking about earlier is, things that might have been just these drawn out, big, long ordeals. If they come up
Mm,
now, you're like navigating through them so much easier. Like the hard feelings aren't lasting as long, and you're finding your way back to, love and connection easier.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because, it feels awful when you're walking around like not talking to each other for, you know, extended periods of times. Like
Yeah,
that's, and yeah,
totally.
it's like you're right. It's just having those tools to recognize those feelings in yourself. And for
Yeah.
me, removing myself works.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, there was definitely a lot of anger there at the beginning, but it's so much better now, and it's only going to get better.
Yeah. And so a couple of the calls that a couple of your coaching calls in the last like month or so or more, like you've come on and you've been like, oh, he did this thing for me. And so I'm
Yeah.
curious, I'd love to hear a couple of your stories. Like there's been a couple, at least a few times that you've said, like, listen to what he did. So I would love to hear you share a couple of those incidents with us.
Okay. Well, okay. So I went away on holiday to visit my dad, which was, last week, and he's a 6-hour drive away. So I did that, and I just used the phrase, which we agreed doesn't work all the time, but it works the majority of the time. I just said, I would love to come home to a vacuumed house because, and just to dive a little deeper, like I haven't done the vacuuming in 2 weeks because I'm like, no, if I do it, I'll just become resentful.
Right, right.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna leave it. And
Yeah.
so,
Good for you.
and so he agreed. And not only did I come home to a vacuumed house, but I came home to the laundry being done, a cooked meal, and the biggest like welcome home hug. And he just couldn't stop kissing me, and it was just so nice and so sweet.
I love
So
it.
that was really, really, really special for someone because I mean, some women can relate to this, I suppose. My man's he's not like an overly touchy feely person. He's not an overly emotional person. He's a real blokey bloke, like he's a real man. And so
Yeah.
when I came home to that, it was just like, oh, this is nice.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. And I remember in the beginning, like you used to like, one of your worries was that he didn't really care about you enough.
Yeah, definitely. Because, and I think this is where us women get tripped up is like how we show affection and love is not necessarily going to be the way that our men show us affection and love, right? And we have to
Yes.
try and find the ways that they do show their affection and that they do
Yes.
care.
Yes.
And so that was a big learning curve for me.
Yeah.
Is well, actually, he shows that he cares for me in this way, and
Yeah.
blah blah blah, and
Yeah.
like this weekend, it's my birthday, so he's arranging a dinner somewhere. I don't know where, but he's planning to for a dinner somewhere, and he's gonna talk to my parents about where we're going to meet them, and I don't know where it is, so it's kind of cool for that surprise. And he's very much one of those people that really like to spoil you on your birthday. So like last year, he took me on a drive into the city and took me to Gucci of all places and bought me a pair of shoes for my birthday. So
Wow.
he's yeah. So
Yeah.
he spoils.
Love it.
But otherwise he's very, good with money. So I think that that's a way that he cares about me too, because he wants to make sure that we're secure. And
Yeah.
it's all those little things. He's not like an overly romantic person. I think I've had maybe 2 bouquets of flowers
Yeah.
in the 2 years that we've been together. But me, I guess it's the bigger picture
Yeah.
items. I feel really, I don't know, I feel really safe with him in respect to, I know that I'm his number one and he's loyal
Yeah.
to me and things like that. There's
Yeah.
been really cute things that he's done, but yeah.
Yeah, I love it, and it's such a contrast. Like how what you're saying now is such a contrast to in the beginning, where it was like, I remember you worked on this really early, but one of the things you're he's not a big texter during the day.
Oh
Your brain
no.
really was making that, you were really making that mean that he didn't really like care about you. But like
Oh
now
my
you're just
God, yeah.
seeing all these ways that he cares about you. Like you see him showing up and loving you. And I just
Yeah,
love that. So he might still not be a big texter, but but he's doing these other things that like
yeah,
clearly
that's right.
communicate his love to you. And you're like opening to receive that and see that and feel that.
Totally,
Yeah.
totally. And the texting thing is such a huge thing. Like, you're right. It really bothered me at first, and um, I just came from such a bit different angle. I just go, oh, maybe he's busy because when he's at work, he's at work and he
Mm-hmm.
concentrates. And then when he does text me or when he does call me, it just means so much more because it's like, oh,
Yes.
that
Yes.
that's awesome. And he just says this because I've never been a big texter, and I would rather talk to you in person. So if I get that phone call or we talk in person, I kind of look forward to it because it's like cool.
So yeah, it's that
Um,
special. Yeah. And like I just want to bring this other thing up, which is that one time you told me how it was similar. It was a similar thing. I don't remember if you were out somewhere, but he like cooked a whole meal for you and he wasn't even there. I think he like cooked the meal and set it out for you and left you in like a love note.
yeah, yeah, he did. He did. It was so sweet. I don't know. I think I was working late that night, and then he was on night shift, and I came home, and yeah, again the house was clean, and
Yeah.
he left me a cute, like, my dinner on the table with a cute little note saying "for my love" or something like that, with like a kiss hug, kiss hug. So even though he's not that romantic, he has those romantic
Yeah.
moments, and they just are
Yeah.
so sweet.
Yeah. So I'm sure that like a lot of other people who would hear this would be like, oh, wow, I wish I could have that. Like, I wish I had that.
Oh,
Like, hearing your voice and just hearing the love and the joy there. They're like, oh, I want what she has. So, so I'm curious, like, you've already shared little bits of this, but
mm.
how did you create this? Like, how did I like to ask that question. What did you like learn or need to learn or do to have this now in your relationship, in your life? And you don't have to say everything, but just like a couple things that stand out.
um, I had to take some responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
really,
Yeah.
and that was really, really hard. It was so hard because you know we all think, oh, they're the one that needs to change. Like, I'm amazing, you know,
Really?
and we are amazing. We are amazing. Don't get me wrong, but we
Yes.
all have flaws and things that we can work on. So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, because I'm highly emotional, there's something I need to do to become, like, I've always wanted to become a bit more resilient, not just for my relationship, but for my work and everything like that.
Yeah.
And you can't be responsible for other people. You can only be responsible for yourself. So I'm like, okay. And like I said earlier, I want to be the best version of myself, and I want
Yes.
to like inspire him as well. And there's no one else I want to be with. So
Yeah.
I want to make this work. Um,
Yes. Yes.
so,
Yeah.
so yeah,
Your
that.
commitment to that, like, and your clarity around that was so powerful. Like I saw you over the months, like returning to that, even when it was hard, even when you wanted to blame. Like I saw you
Yeah,
coming
yeah,
back to that over and over. Like, wait, no, I want to be the best version of myself. Like I want to be with him. I want this to
yeah,
work. Like I
yeah,
want to be resilient. And if that means taking responsibility, I'm in, even though it feels
yeah,
hard.
exactly. Yeah, it's it's honestly one of the hardest things that your clients, including myself, will
Yes,
probably have to do. And you
totally.
know, and there are times where you still blame it, and you go, oh, okay,
Yeah.
so what can I do in this respect? And
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
um, but I'm glad I did, because otherwise I would just be in that blame space, and it just didn't get me anywhere. And um, I'm not saying I'm exempt from not being upset or anything like that, but
No.
I just have tools now to be able to deal with it better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Totally. Yeah, it's beautiful. So, yeah, I think that was the biggest, like, that was the biggest thing for you, like, that I
Yeah.
saw you learn how to
Mm.
do. And so this is what's so interesting, and this might probably won't come as a surprise, but in the beginning of our time together, like, your brain, like, really wanted to keep telling you that he was the problem, right?
Yes,
like
absolutely.
it was a lot of time. Like, we'd get on calls and you'd spend a lot of time. Like, it was really hard, and for your brain to stop like seeing where he was going wrong, and for you to step back and be like, oh, like, this is how I can shift, right? And you know what was amazing though to me is, like, it was a lot of time of, like, part of you resisting that and another part of you really working towards that. And it seemed like things for a while. So tell me where I'm wrong, but it seemed for like many calls that things weren't actually changing in your relationship.
Mm,
But then there
very
was this,
true.
yeah, like, it was like, oh, it was frustrating, right? But then
Totally.
there was this moment, and where it was like something shifted in
Yep.
you.
Hmm.
I know you remember, like, deeply, right? And it was like all of the
Yeah.
it was like all of the things that you'd been working to be open to, and you've been trying to understand and get, just like it, all our coaching like suddenly crystallized inside of you.
Yeah, and I think it was actually I had to take action. It was all good me sitting here saying, yeah, like that sounds really good. But for me, the hardest bit was taking action and making time for it.
Yeah, really. That's such an important point. And I want to make sure our listeners don't miss that. That, a lot of us, it's all good and fine and wonderful to take in information and to sort of have our thoughts shifted around, to have new insights and such. But so much of the change actually really starts to finally happen when we implement, right? When we take action, when I like to call it, like, we embody some of the changes, we experience them, we actually do them. And so I think for you that was a big place where you finally did start. It took you a while to get to that point to really start taking that action, but once you did, it made a big difference.
The changes is when I did, the like the brain dumps, like writing down all
Yeah.
my like hard feelings, and then that really helped because it was like,
Yeah.
oh, when I took the space to do that and go, oh,
Yes.
that feels better now that I've got that off, I can actually probably deal with this better now.
And for our listeners, just so they understand what a brain dump actually is, it really is like a way to actually practice self responsibility every day. And what I mean by that in this case is really being aware and taking responsibility for the thoughts that are going through your mind, right? Like those catastrophizing thoughts, or thoughts that lead to you feeling hurt or upset or resentful, right? My favorite way of explaining it is, it's like letting the negative part of your brain have a voice, letting that lizard brain that we talked about in episode 6, letting that part of you just speak its mind, right? And literally writing down its thoughts, your thoughts, the brain's thoughts, negative thoughts, onto a piece of paper or into a journal. What many of us often find is that just by letting them out onto the paper, by writing them down, the feelings will dissipate. They'll lose their edge and really move on, so that we can start to feel better ultimately. And of course, then we can, access more of our rational brain and even really question those thoughts that are coming from our lizard brain, because so often those thoughts aren't actually the truth. They're just sort of like a passing negative way of looking at things. And so being able to kind of look at them from this distance, or just move forward and let them go, has so much power to make us, to get us back to feeling calmer and centered, and really being able to see what's good about our lives and our partner. So that's really just the essence of the brain dump or thought download. Highly, highly suggested as a daily practice.
I've never been a journal keeper, and like I had a counselor for a long time. She's like, I really think you benefit from journaling. I'm like, yeah, I started, but I don't keep going with it. But even if you don't do it consistently, if you do it where you really need to do it, that was
Yes.
most helpful. It's just I finally took the action to,
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. And I kind of called you out on it. Do you remember that? Like we had this call where I was like, you know what? Like you just got to take some action. Like we gotta do these things. And you're like, but I don't, that's not what I do. And we were like, well, let's question that. Right.
yeah, no,
it was
yeah,
that. And
definitely.
you started taking those actions, which was like, it was like a really important way to follow through on the commitment that you had, because you had the commitment there, you just weren't fully bringing it into the action place.
Totally. Totally. And it does help having someone there that like politely kicks your ass, because it's like, you're not there with your hands tied behind your back. You are there because you want to be. Like, I wanted to be there.
Yes.
Um
Yes.
I wanted to be, a wonderful partner. I wanted to be, I wanted all of that. I wanted to be a calmer,
Yeah.
lighter person. I didn't want to take everything so personally or an attack. So, it feels good to be in that space. I definitely feel like I've still got a bit of work to do, but
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think
I
there's
definitely,
always room for more growth, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But
Yeah,
otherwise, I feel like, if I can change this much in 6 months, imagine what another 6 months is going to do, and then,
totally.
therefore after that, I think it does really help having people that are, I guess, like-minded and want that for you and can support you and things like that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you've got to have your own back as
Yes.
well.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah, totally. So I'm wondering, like, after having come this far and
Mm-hmm.
having, applied yourself and been open to the growth and watched your own growth and watched the changes that because of that growth like are reflected in your relationship, how are you feeling about yourself?
I feel super proud of myself because, I still have my moments, as you know, but
Yeah.
I am handling things so much better than I used to, and practice makes perfect. I mean, I remember saying to you, I don't want, this is too challenging. And you're like, but this is good because this is where you're going to grow. Right.
Yeah.
And so I was just saying earlier, I'm actually really thankful for the hard times
Yeah.
that have happened and perhaps the hard times that are going to come, because it's just going to encourage that growth a bit more. And, I still have thoughts, and I'm sure a lot of your clients will feel this way too, where you just go, oh my God, did I make a mistake being with this person? And you go through
Mm-hmm.
all those things. But ultimately, the day when you guys are laughing again, you're like, no, I didn't make a mistake. This is just absolutely bloody wonderful, you know?
Totally. I love that. I love that so much. And one of the things you've gotten really good at doing, and actually this is a piece of the like learning how to be responsible for yourself part, is like, like we were saying earlier, like you have the brain that like wanted to see what was going wrong and wanting to blame him, right? Like you have a very, like so many of us do have a very, like a part of your brain that you used to just like believe it all the time, right? Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like the lizard brain,
Mm,
like sort of going into that place of like catastrophizing, like we've talked about. Like your brain wants to go like
yes.
be like, oh, maybe I married the not married, but maybe I'm with the wrong person. You know, maybe this won't work out. What
Yeah.
do you
Yeah.
what do you do now? Like, do you have any? Like, how are you more responsible and in charge of that part of you now?
Um, that's a good question. I try to not dwell on it too much. I go,
Yeah.
oh, this is what your brain does. Like, just being silly. I know you're feeling a bit sad right now, but how do you feel a majority of the time?
Yeah.
I try and think about what it feels like when we are laughing. I try and take care of myself, right? Like I said to you
Yes.
yesterday, like I went out for a walk with my dog and I watched something funny. I practiced
Yeah.
guitar. So I really dove deep into that self-care piece. Like I think
Yeah.
a lot of us forget to do that. And that's also where that resentment comes in. So now I say no more. I prioritize my self-care. I've
Mm-hmm.
gotten back into like just coloring,
Mm, so
I love it,
fun.
and I just feel so relaxed.
I
Yeah,
love it.
exactly. I try and do stuff like that, and that really helps. I'm not saying it completely gets rid of it, but you do get over those negative feelings quicker,
Yes.
and yeah, it just feels better overall.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. Yeah. So what the difference is, the theme here is self-responsibilities. You're taking care of your own feelings instead of like waiting or making or trying to make him be different. You're like, okay, I'm gonna figure this out for myself. Like I'm gonna let it flow. I'm gonna let it, let the feelings do what they do, or I'm gonna work with them directly, or I'm gonna watch something funny until you come sort of through that space where your brain's like catastrophizing or all that. Until
Yeah,
you, yeah,
that's right. And I think, like I said, I think that's the hardest part. And to
yeah,
be fair, we all want Mr. Perfect. We're not going to have Mr. Perfect. It's just
yeah.
it's acceptance, right? And that's how they feel love too. It's like, I don't agree with everything he does, but I want him to feel accepted exactly how he is right now, and I only hope for the best for him and expect the best from him. And so that, I think, in turn, that kind of inspires him and
Yeah.
makes him feel loved, because if things were the other way around and say he was trying to um, change me all the time and stuff, I would just feel like I wasn't good enough. And
Yes.
nobody wants to feel that way, like that doesn't feel great. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that awareness so much. And it sounds to me from everything you've shared that by taking more control of yourself, by being more responsible for your own feelings and how you um, show up with him, it's allowed for
Mm,
him to feel safer and more loved and therefore be more loving.
mm, mm. Exactly. It's finding ways to take care of yourself. It really is, and
Yeah.
just not neglecting yourself. Like,
Yeah.
for example, I knew that I was going to have a busy day today, right? And I had a friend,
Mm-hmm.
like a work colleague, that said to me yesterday, "Oh, why don't you come over for a coffee?" and blah blah blah. And I find it hard to say no, but I was like, you know what? As much as I would love that, I have just come back from a big road trip. I just did a lot of driving yesterday, and I promised myself that I would stay home today and that I would relax. And
Yeah.
I'll catch up with you on Thursday, because I knew I was going to have a busy day today. So I was like, if I do that, I will be exhausted, and I know that I'm not the best person when I'm exhausted.
Totally.
So I honored that in myself, and it felt so good. And a good friend will be understanding, and if they do give you a hard time, just water off a duck's back. They'll get over it.
So true. Yeah. Well, you are, like I said, like you're such a beautiful example.
Thank
And I
you.
just appreciate everything you've shared and being so open about it. Are there any final tips or insights that you want to share with us?
Yeah, sure. Like I said, I think self-care is super, super important.
Yeah.
Um, you're not going to be exempt from those negative thoughts, but if you have the tools, you will get over it quicker, and you'll go straight back to feeling super connected with your partner or your husband. And I
Mm-hmm.
do honestly think that the coaching really helps me.
Yeah.
It really helped me, because I had that support. You know, and even though we only got to work together for 6 months, I will have the tools in my toolkit to be able to rely on. And I don't know if I would have had those so readily if I didn't have your guidance. Because, you know, as emotional and sensitive people, it's a little more challenging.
Yes, I hear you.
But it is also, you know, so beautiful as well. So, I mean, we feel things so deeply.
Yes.
So in those moments where we are feeling really close to our husbands and things like that, it just feels like magic. So
I love it. Yes, and I couldn't agree more, Jade. Thank you so much for sharing. This is going to be so exciting, inspiring for people.
Thank you.
Had so many little juicy nuggets that you just shared with us. So thank you again.
No worries.
All right. In this episode, Jade offered lots of good nuggets that you can put to use in your relationship so you can start having more of the experience that you want. And I wanted to offer that one of the things that she put to use really beautifully in her relationship that really actually had her sweetie doing more of the things that she wanted was a particular phrase. Actually, two phrases which are basically the same, which is, I would love it if ... fill in the blank. Or the way that I prefer to say it is, hey, would you be willing to ... fill in the blank. This is a powerful way to invite your honey to do something that you'd love him to do without it coming off kind of accusatory or naggy or complainy or demanding. Jade put this to beautiful use in her relationship. So if you want to hear actually about 10 more other phrases like this that can support your marriage and learn more about that particular one and how to use it effectively, I highly recommend you grab my 7 most powerful phrases to deepen connection guidebook. Totally free. It's my gift to you. You can just go over to my website and you'll find lots of different places where you can enter your name and get that free download. Or you can go to the show notes and you'll find a direct link there to the 7 most powerful phrases to deepen connection in your marriage. All right. I hope you enjoy that guidebook, and I hope that you enjoyed this podcast and hearing Jade's story. Be oh so well.